Hello, I wanted to talk to you today about the Omicron variant. I hope that you had a fantastic Thanksgiving, though, before we get into it, because it's been really a wild few days. If you're talking about the news and the way that the media is covering just the latest in the sensational story of COVID and its idiotic cult of people who think that the world needs to basically shut down in order for this disease and series of diseases to be eradicated. I like to think of it this way, okay? There are so many risks that you go through every day, and the course of your life has a lot of cost-benefit analysis to it. There's a such thing as opportunity cost, which is the idea that you lose something by not taking a chance just as much as you may lose something by taking that chance. And it's sad to say, but I do know people in my own family and in my work existence or places I've worked in the past, as well as my in-laws, who have largely been cowed by the fear porn that the media has put forward about the various COVID risks. And my personal experience has been that the more that you allow the fear to take over, the less that you as a person have the power to actually have any say in your own destiny. Because if you're having a group of unelected bureaucrats tell you to mask up, tell you to take these very sketchy pharmaceutical products, and you're basically just walking lockstep with them, or even doing part of it, in my opinion, then you're surrendering your own personal autonomy to somebody who has no interest in your in your survival, right? So I can tell from my personal experience, when the pandemic started, I actually lost my job, and I was in a relationship, but my girlfriend and I were basically on a track to get married, probably within the next few months. And we had been on actually a good period because we were both working for a little while, and it looked like we could actually take the next step in our lives. But because of COVID and because of the unrest and also the election unrest and everything, I was consistently putting off my proposal to her. And I was already somebody who was given to the idea that if you have doubts in something, it's best not to go forward at that point, right? Because there had been so many setbacks in my own life that I didn't want to put somebody else at risk. But around September of 2020, as I was already working a new job, which didn't pay nearly as much, as I was having to travel around the country, or rather more towards the East Coast, as I was constantly having to have this relationship with my girlfriend that was oftentimes, I want to say, on the back burner, because we'd have to communicate by phone and, text back and forth and things like that. I decided that the better time is not going to come. You have to take the decision into your own hands and not wait for society to do it for you. You can't just put off the changes in your own life for when the world changes around you. And I know that there are exceptions where you do see, yes, there are instances where you see that instability and volatility in the world may make it unwise to take a certain decision. But think of it this way: if you are putting off your own personal growth and your new decisions simply because you think that the world is going to make it easier for you, you might end up waiting forever. You might be waiting there years and years from now. And that's something that I've learned a few times in my experience. And I think that there are people who are out there who have let that sort of passive mentality ruin their prospect for at least like some sort of happy existence. Now, I've had relatives. I have an aunt who actually retired because of COVID, and she's been somewhat willing to go outside. She's a little older, but yeah, she didn't come to my parents' Thanksgiving celebration, and the reason given was because of fear of the COVID outbreak. And there's a person who is into masking up. She's into taking the vaccines. She's been rigorously taking precautions. She hasn't necessarily traveled a lot. And yet, because of all of this, all these precautions, this is a person who lives in fear and isn't really able to live their life to the fullest. And I feel, unfortunately, I feel like a lot of pity for her, because you live so long and you get to retire, and what is your retirement? Waiting at home for the news to get better. And it's a little, it's a little depressing when you think about it, but there are people that I've seen who are much younger than that who behave like that, and they put off career decisions, they put off issues that they put off events in their own children's lives. We had to decide earlier this year whether we're going to go to a family event in a different state, and the people that were organizing the event said that, well, so these were relatives, of course, so these people said, well, we expect you, if you're going to attend any of the events around this, to be fully vaccinated, or else you can't really participate. And I was reading this and I was thinking, if you want to impose an expectation on guests who are making a long journey in order to share in a special occasion for you and your family, then you're basically making it as if you're doing a courtesy to them. It's the ultimate sign of disrespect and showing that you think people should be adhering to your way of life. And we didn't go, and not only did we not go, I specifically RSVP'd no several times, and I just kept getting messages. And finally, I got a phone call from the person who organized it, and she was very thankful for the gift we sent. And then she was saying, oh, it's so unfortunate that you couldn't come and that we couldn't come to your wedding and everything. But eventually, when everybody is fully vaccinated and things will get back to normal, we'll have more time to we'll be able to catch up. And I said to her, look, we had no problem with you coming to our wedding. In fact, we couldn't care less whether this was before the vaccines were out, but we gave our invitations to people, and everybody could make their own decision. It's not as if we made some dispensation where you have to be this or you have to take a PCR test or whatever the case. And thank God, most people, there were a couple people who ended up getting COVID afterward, but there was no connection that was made to our wedding. So the truth is, we had the best experience we could. We had to organize the wedding from the beginning. My wife put a lot of effort into it, including artistic effort and organizing effort. And I put a lot of effort into some of the logistics. But in the end, we had that event to enjoy, and we had our friends and family there to enjoy it with us, because we didn't let the situation become an undue burden and a distraction. And we wanted to continue our lives and begin our lives together, because it was important enough for us. And the pandemic was not going to stop us from doing that. On the other hand, there are people who have allowed the pandemic either to dominate their lives and dominate their events, just like in the example that I put forward just now, the people who had their event and required full vaccination. And they seem to think that, well, we'll just do this one restriction. We'll do face masks. We'll do we'll do a vaccine requirement. We'll do all this other stuff. And it's all in the name of getting back to normal. And in reality, it's actually the opposite. It's in the name of putting everything within the prism of this eternal crisis. And it's something that you see in certain ideologies, especially in, I would say, in Trotskyism. Trotsky, I believe, was the communist theoretician who was talking about perpetual revolution, where you never have institutionalization of society because you always have revolution going on, keeping society going forward in progress. That is really the spirit that authoritarian coronavirus restrictions are sort of akin to. I wouldn't say that I'm not trying to say that Dr. Fauci is a Trotskyist or whoever else is, Dr. Birx or Dr. Walensky is a Trotskyist, or the Democrats and the coronatarians are Trotskyists, but it's the same sort of concept, okay, where instead of actually resolving an issue, resolving a crisis, getting the world back to a sort of equilibrium, you keep it spinning off of its axis and continually getting into more absurd situations. And that's really what I think is creating this prolonged psychological issue among people who won't go outside, who won't go and try to find new vistas in their career or new relationships, new friendships. And it's a major problem, and I think we'll have multiple generations scarred by this experience. About the Omicron variant itself, there's already a few countries like Israel that are they're levying heavy restrictions on travel as a response to this new crisis, this new crisis, which isn't really new, and yet you've had people like a scientist from South Africa, one of the discoverers of the Omicron variant, who have said that people are panicking for no reason because in reality we don't know yet the effect of the Omicron variant on children or on anybody who, or for that matter, on people who have had the virus or the unvaccinated or the vaccinated. What we do know, however, and people are already making this observation, is that claimed cases of the Omicron variant in Australia, if proven to be valid, would sustain the notion that vaccination does not really affect one way or another whether the virus will be spread or not, meaning that you cannot travel to Australia if you are unvaccinated. Therefore, if there are cases there then of the Omicron variant, they're being spread by vaccinated people. And this whole propaganda campaign to make it seem like this is a pandemic of the vaccinated, of the unvaccinated, this is a pandemic of people who won't be responsible, who won't do their civic duty, that is a blatant lie. And that brings me to the real, the real focus point that I want people to be conscious of. The pandemic lasts as long as you allow it to. Yes, there's always going to be this pathogen in the air, and you're always going to have a risk of getting infected, potentially getting sick. That's always been the case. It's been the case since long before Corona. This is a different pathogen, but there have been pathogens like it in the past, and there were several like it going back 40, 50, 60 years. It's only been recent that people have started to talk about viruses as a pathogen as opposed to bacteria, or even before that there were there were like vague concepts like a miasma that have proven to be wrong scientifically, and yet you have people who they are keeping this alive, like Fauci, who is saying that when people criticize me, they're really criticizing science because I represent science. Nobody has the right to represent science. You have to employ your own scientific skills, your own scientific reasoning in order to actually make decisions in your own life. And what people like Fauci are doing is they're saying, well, no, you don't have the mental skills, you don't have the mental faculties to do that. You need us to do it for you. You need to remember who you are and who we are, and therefore you need to defer to us for the decisions. If you really live and breathe in the scientific career sphere, right? If you're in the STEM fields, whether it's in high tech or in medicine or in heavy industry, I happen to be in an industrial career. Nobody gets to claim that they are the science, right? That's absurd. Nobody, not Stephen Hawking, has ever claimed that they're the science. Not even Bill Nye, who himself is full of it. But suddenly, Fauci gets to say, he said before, I am the science, I represent science. That is the epitome of megalomania, of hubris, and it shows that this is the mentality of people who want to declare that their authority is final and your personal reasoning skills don't even come into play here. So don't listen to them. The pandemic goes on as long as you allow it to. What you need to do is defy these mandates, defy these decisions, continue to hold on, continue to show that you don't bow to the dictatorial powers, and make sure that they know that they have a price to pay if they continue to impose these on you. So that's about it. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find me on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute for video shares as well as YouTube. This is on Podbean also, so subscribe to my Podbean, which is Razor Sharp News Chronicle. You can find me on Minds and Gab, and also my Substack newsletter, which is Razor Sharp News Chronicle, my Telegram channel, Razor Sharp News Chronicle, and I think that's it. Oh, and also the Subscribe Star if you want to throw me some money. And have a great day. Bye.